My husband's young secretary was on a spending spree with my credit card, calling me a useless trophy wife in the middle of a French restaurant. In a flash of anger, I canceled the card, leaving her unable to pay the bill. Not only was she utterly humiliated, but the manager also detained her overnight. When my husband, Ethan, found out, he just playfully tapped my nose. "Oh, you, a grown woman getting jealous of a young girl. You even got her laughed at by everyone." He didn't blame me, acting as if it was nothing, right up until my birthday, when he took me out to that same French restaurant. He ordered dozens of tables worth of expensive dishes and fine wine, claiming his friends were on their way. "Honey, I'm just going to step out for a moment. I'll be right back to celebrate with you." But I waited until the restaurant was about to close, and he never returned. Neither did any of his friends. Just as I pulled out my card to pay, the manager informed me. A mess. "Miller, this card has been frozen." Frozen? This was the card Ethan had given me. Before we left, he'd even taken my personal cards, insisting that since it was my birthday, he would be the one paying. I had been so touched at the time, secretly thrilled that I had found such a thoughtful, wonderful husband. But now he was nowhere to be found, and my dozens of calls went straight to voicemail. If this card didn't work, I was going to be in serious trouble. The manager's expression shifted from respectful to impatient. "Ms. Miller, do you have another card you can use?" he pressed. "I should remind you, we don't allow anyone to run a tab. You should know that after what happened last month." Of course I remembered. Last month, it was Ethan's little secretary, Candy, who was throwing his money around before calling me a useless trophy wife. A terrible feeling crept over me. Could this be Ethan's way of getting revenge on her behalf? Just as the thought crossed my mind, I heard the click of dress shoes on the floor. I turned to see Ethan walking in, his arm wrapped around Candy, who was glaring at me with pure hatred. Behind them was a crowd of their friends, all of them staring at me like I was the evening's entertainment. "Sonny," Ethan sneered, "don't you just love punishing people who can't pay their bills? Now you get to experience it for yourself. What are you going to do when you're the one with no money?" The moment he finished speaking, the room erupted in chatter and laughter. "I heard that Sonny came from nothing," someone whispered loudly. "She got lucky catching Mr. Hayes' eye, and now her own husband is here with his new flame to watch her get humiliated." Another person laughed. "See, that's what happens when you rely on a pretty face to get ahead." Exactly. How long can youth and beauty last? The second a billionaire finds someone younger and prettier, her life of luxury is over. I slowly clenched my fists, a hot wave of humiliation washing over me. It was just as I'd suspected. Ethan had set this entire trap just to get back at me for Candy. He led her by the hand to a table right in front of me, pulling out her chair before sitting down himself. "Candy, don't you worry," he said. "However Sonny humiliated you that day, I'm going to pay her back in kind." Candy's face lit up with delight, and she instinctively turned and planted a kiss right on Ethan's lips. "Thank you, Ethan." Then she shot me a defiant look. "Sonny, you're nothing but a useless pretty face. Or why did you have to cancel my card?" With that, she grabbed a bottle of expensive red wine and smashed it on the floor at my feet. Wine splashed onto my face, making me look even more pathetic. "Ah, you worthless trash," she shrieked. "I have Ethan to pay for me now. I can smash as many bottles as I want. You, on the other hand, are completely screwed." Ethan watched me with a smirk. "Don't give me that murderous glare. If you have the money, feel free to pay the bill and walk out." One of his friends roared with laughter. "Money? What money could she possibly have? The cost of all this food and wine is astronomical. She could never afford it. She's always lived off Mr. Hayes' money. Without him, she's nothing." To complete my humiliation, Ethan stood up, a cold smile on his face as his eyes swept across the entire restaurant. "Anyone who dares to help Sonny tonight," he announced, "is an enemy of mine and an enemy of the Hayes family." Everyone in New York knew the Hayes family was the wealthiest in the city. No one would dare cross Ethan Hayes. A few business partners I was on good terms with had started to rise, ready to help me out of this mess. But as soon as they heard Ethan's threat, they sank back into their chairs, terrified he might have noticed them. "Did you see that? He's dead serious," someone murmured. "He cares more about that secretary than his own wife." "I guess so. I thought, they're married." I figured he was just having a moment, but it looks like this is the real deal. With a threat like that, who would dare help Sonny now? I was so furious I lost control. I stormed over and grabbed Ethan's arm. Ethan, are you really going to humiliate me like this for that little witch? Ethan sneered and slapped me hard across the face. The sound echoed in the silent room. Yes, I am, he said coldly. I turned back to him, my head spinning in disbelief. We had been married for 3 years, known to everyone as the perfect, loving couple. He was the one who pursued me when I first moved to New York. At our wedding, he vowed to be faithful, to never betray me, to love me with his very life, forever. And now, it had only been 3 years. All those vows, all those beautiful memories were being systematically destroyed by his cruelty. It was just as people always said, a woman who marries into wealth on her looks alone has no dignity. The moment a younger, prettier woman comes along, the trophy wife's luxurious life is over. But Ethan had no idea. I didn't marry into the Hayes family for their money. I married him because I truly loved him. Staring into my furious, red-rimmed eyes, Ethan took out a handkerchief and disdainfully wiped the hand he had just used to strike me. You knew how much I care for Candy, he said coolly, but you just had to push it. Sonny, if you can't pay this bill, I'll have the manager strip you naked and throw you out onto the street. At his words, a cheer went up through the crowd, and their eyes, filled with a mixture of mockery and lust, landed on me. Wow, Mr. Hayes is really ruthless, making his own wife streak for his new girlfriend. I know, right? She won't be his wife for much longer. After tonight, Sonny Miller will be a nobody again. Let's just shut up and watch the show. Another one chuckled. The other wealthy, middle-aged men in the room were staring at me with lecherous amusement. Well, one of them drawled, I'm curious to see if she has the body to back up that face. My face burned with humiliation. Ethan had taken my credit cards before we left the house, lulling me into a false sense of security. All I had now was the expensive designer dress on my back. I had no way to pay. My phone was dead, too. I finally understood. Ethan had planned every single detail of this. It's getting late, Sonny, Candy taunted. The restaurant is waiting for you to pay, so they can close up. She feigned a gasp. Don't tell me you can't afford it. What are you going to do? If you can't pay, they'll detain you and call the police. Isn't that what you did to me? Candy pulled out a slim cigarette, lit it, and took a long, deliberate drag. She blew a cloud of smoke right in my face. Her smug, arrogant expression was too much, and I lunged, slapping her across the face. The scene exploded into chaos. Ethan, seeing his precious Candy hurt, immediately ordered his bodyguards to grab me. Sonny, stop it! Ethan yelled as his men threw me to the ground. What's wrong? I shot back, my eyes burning with rage. You're allowed to humiliate others, but no one is allowed to touch you. I glared at him. The only reason the Hayes Corporation had become the top firm in New York in just 3 years was because of me. I used my family's influence to help the Hayes Corporation crush its competition. Even the underworld figures who wanted a piece of them backed off out of respect for me. I had planned to tell Ethan the truth tonight on my birthday, to reveal that I wasn't some girl from nowhere. I was the heir to the Miller family, the most powerful dynasty in Beverly Hills. I was going to take him home to meet my parents. I never imagined a heart could turn so cold, so fast. I had completely misjudged him. I had overestimated his character. Ethan, are you really going to force me to walk out of here in shame? I asked, my voice low. He laughed. What do you think? You think I went to all this trouble for nothing? Candy, emboldened by the bodyguards holding me, punched me in the face. You bitch, she spat. You have 2 choices. Get locked up for not paying, or strip naked, put this piece of steak in your mouth, and crawl out of here barking like a dog. Oh, and the difference is, the first option lets you keep your clothes on. The second one leaves you with no clothes and no dignity. Huh. Choose, I can't wait. Facing a room full of eager spectators, I clenched my fists and looked at Ethan, my expression completely blank. Fine, I said, my voice void of emotion. Since this is your choice, then the future bankruptcy of the Hayes Corporation will be your responsibility. The words had barely left my mouth before Candy burst into hysterical laughter, the rest of the room joining in. As she read, Too many romance novels? Does she think she's some secret billionaire heiress? Someone jeered. The woman's clearly lost her mind from the stress. Ethan glared at me, his eyes full of anger. He thought I was bluffing, too. He grabbed a plate of food and hurled it at me. Stop talking nonsense. You, bankrupt the Hayes family? You're not worthy, he spat. Worry about how you're going to get out of this mess. Manager. The manager understood immediately and approached with his security guards. He spoke to me coldly. Ms. Miller, will you be paying in cash, or will you have someone else cover the bill? Out of professional courtesy, he at least refrained from making a scene. My eyes scanned the room, finally landing on a business associate I'd worked with frequently, someone I'd met while negotiating deals for the Hayes Corporation. I started walking toward her, but the moment she saw me coming, she shot up from her chair and backed away. Sonny, don't come near me. I can't pay for you. I don't dare, she stammered. Don't worry, I said calmly. I'm not asking you to pay. I just need to borrow your phone. May I? I just need to make one call. A friend will bring the money. Candy howled with laughter. She's still putting on an act. Who in New York would dare bring you money now? Fine, let her call, Ethan said. We'll give her half an hour. If the money isn't here by then, he turned to the leering, portly men in the room, I'll let you have her. The richest man's plaything can't be too bad, right? Those men were already practically drooling. At a nod from Ethan, the associate handed me her phone. I immediately dialed my friend and told her she had 30 minutes to get here with the cash. The minutes ticked by. With only 10 minutes left on the clock, Candy grew impatient and stood up. I can't believe I was stupid enough to fall for that, she sneered. As if some friend is actually going to show up with money for this bitch. She's just stalling for time, someone else agreed. Manager, just have your men break her arms and legs already. No one is going to risk offending the Hayes family to bring her money. Let's stop wasting time. As the manager and his security guards closed in, looking menacing, I held up a hand to stop them. Wait, I said, there's still 10 minutes left. When the time is up, the money will be here. My ass, Candy spat. If anyone brings you money in the next 10 minutes, or even 20, I'll be the one to put a steak in my mouth and crawl out of here like a dog. My eyes lit up. You said it. Please remember that. I said it, so what? You all heard me. The room buzzed with excitement again. Haha, this is better than a movie. I don't even want to go home. Who knew dinner tonight would come with this kind of entertainment? The 10 minutes were almost up. One of the portly men couldn't wait any longer and reached out to grope me. Don't touch me. I snapped, slapping his hand away. Haha, that chest, that figure, even without touching, I can tell it's impressive, he leered. Mr. Hayes, why don't you just give her to me? Ethan just smiled, took a sip of wine, and toyed with his lighter. Why not? Ethan replied. If she can't pay, you can all do whatever you want with her. Haha, then I'm first, another man shouted. Convinced I was helpless, they ignored my protests and began to close in. My voice was ice cold, filled with murderous rage, but these men just laughed it off. Candy, her eyes dancing with cruel amusement, ordered Ethan's bodyguards. Go on, hold her down tight, so those pigs can have their fun. Yes, sir. The bodyguards swarmed and surrounded me. I looked at Ethan, my heart turning to a block of ice. We were still technically married, yet he was letting other men assault me. It was a disgrace to him as much as it was to me. But he didn't care. Don't look at me like that, he said. I'm not going to help you. All that matters is that Candy is happy. With his blessing, the group of lecherous men began to shout excitedly. Hey, beautiful, come with me. I've got money. I can pay your bill. No, come with me. I've got more money, and I'm not as fat as him. They shouted over each other, ordering the bodyguards to hold me still as their hands reached out to tear my dress. I struggled with all my might, which only made the men in the room laugh harder. I memorized every single one of their faces. You want to watch me become a joke? I seethed. Just wait. I'll make every one of you a laughingstock. My eyes landed on Candy. And you. Candy spat in my direction. Rip her dress off. Time's up. No more stalling for her. Before she could finish, the restaurant doors burst open. A team of security guards in sharp black suits stormed in, efficiently and systematically taking down the men who were holding me. Right behind them was Victoria Diaz, the renowned president of Sterling National Bank. She strode in carrying a heavy briefcase, her expression grim and serious. Ms. Miller, she said, her voice ringing with authority. I brought the cash. I hope I'm not too late. Ethan and Candy shot to their feet, their faces masks of utter confusion. Ms. Diaz? What are you doing here? Ethan stammered. You're a major player. How could a nobody like Sonny possibly get you to deliver cash for her? Candy rubbed her eyes furiously, certain she was hallucinating. But after blinking several times, the reality of the situation hit her. Is that really the Victoria Diaz? Victoria Diaz didn't spare Ethan or Candy a single glance. She walked directly to me, her demeanor deeply respectful. Ms. Miller, she said quietly. Mr. Croft sent me ahead to handle this. He's on his way now. Seeing my torn and stained dress, she turned, her cold eyes sweeping across the room. Who gave you the audacity to disrespect Ms. Miller? She demanded. Instantly, the boisterous restaurant fell deathly silent. If the Hayes family was the richest in New York, the empire and network of contacts behind Victoria Diaz were more than enough to crush them. People had always wondered how the Hayes Corporation had risen to the top so quickly. They never would have guessed it was thanks to the trophy wife they all scorned. It was because Ethan once told me, I want to be the richest man in the city, so my wife can have anything she wants. How things have changed. I made him the richest man in New York, and I can just as easily make him fall. Faced with Victoria Diaz's palpable fury, no one dared to utter a sound. They could only stare at each other in shock. Candy's face went white, her lips trembling. Sonny, she really called someone to bring the money? Our bet was still on. If I paid the bill, she would be the one crawling out of here with a steak in her mouth. No, this can't be real, she muttered to herself. The famous Victoria Diaz could never be friends with that bitch. No one could answer her. The entire room held its breath. Ms. Diaz fixed her icy gaze on Candy. Were you the one who ordered them to assault Ms. Miller? The question was laced with such menace that Candy's knees buckled. Ethan steadied her. What are you afraid of? I'm right here. With Ethan's support, Candy's confidence slowly returned. That's right, she thought. Ethan is the richest man in New York. I might be scared of Victoria Diaz, but that doesn't mean he is. Her courage restored, Candy stood up straight. Ethan turned to me. I don't know what your connection is to Victoria Diaz, but I want to make one thing clear to both of you. In New York City, the Hayes family calls the shots. And as for you, Ms. Diaz, he continued, I suggest you stay out of my family business. It's not your place. He puffed out his chest. I beat you once to become the top dog in this city, and I can do it again. Ms. Diaz let out a short, sharp laugh. Such big words, Mr. Hayes. If it weren't for Ms. Miller's intervention back then, your little company would have been devoured years ago, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. The only reason the Hayes Corporation has its status today is because of her. You're a fool who doesn't appreciate his own good fortune. Ethan just scoffed, clearly not believing a word she said. I was getting tired of this. I didn't want to argue anymore. Soon enough, I would make my move against his family, and Ethan Hayes would learn that the consequences for crossing Sonny Miller were more than he could ever bear. The bill is paid, I announced, but I believe Ms. Vance made a promise. Do we all remember? Instantly, a buzz went through the crowd. They were all shrewd enough to know what came next. It was their turn to stir the pot and bring the drama to its peak. Let's not take sides yet, one person whispered. We don't know who the real power player is here, but we can definitely watch. Haha, exactly, another replied. Work is stressful enough. A free show like this? I'm not missing it. Candy jumped forward, pointing a finger in my face. You bitch, don't push your luck, she shrieked. So what if I said it? What are you going to do? Ethan calls the shots here. You think Victoria Diaz can make me do anything? I spit on that. I'm not doing it. Ethan beamed, stroking Candy's cheek as if she were a precious doll. He clearly adored her petulance. I let out a cold, humorless smile. When the news of the Hayes Corporation's stock plummeting came through, I wondered if he'd still be looking at her with such affection. Ms. Diaz frowned and gave a subtle nod to one of her bodyguards. In a flash, the guard moved a single precise blow, sending Candy sprawling to the floor in front of me. On all fours, she looked exactly like a dog. You made a promise, the bodyguard said, his voice flat. Now, as Ms. Miller instructed, you will put the meat in your mouth and crawl out of here barking like a dog. Another guard appeared with a plate of raw, bloody steak. The sight of it made Candy gag and retch. "Ethan, help me," she screamed. "I'd rather die than be humiliated like this." Her screams finally spurred Ethan to action. He snapped his fingers, ordering his own men to intervene. Instantly, Ms. Diaz's security team clashed with Ethan's. The fight was over almost before it began. Ethan's men were swiftly and brutally neutralized. They were no match for a team that had undergone rigorous professional training. Candy's face went chalk white again, beads of sweat rolling down her forehead. Ethan glared at us, his face contorted with rage. "Diaz, you give an inch, you take a mile. Believe me, I can make you disappear from New York overnight. Don't make an enemy of me over Sonny Miller. That would be a very stupid move." Ms. Diaz ignored his threat completely, turning to me with utmost respect. "I'll wait your instructions, Ms. Miller." I smiled, my eyes locked on Ethan. "What's the matter? You're allowed to humiliate me, but I'm not allowed to return the favor." I then turned to Ms. Diaz. "Also, have a lawyer draw up divorce papers. Tell them to be quick." The words were barely out of my mouth when Ethan roared, "Damn you, Sonny. If anyone is filing for divorce, it will be me. Who do you think you are? Whether I have the right?" I replied coolly, "You'll understand soon enough after you sign the papers. By the way, your father might be stopping by later to beat you senseless, you ungrateful son." "Shut up. What are you?" he snarled. "You think he'd come here and beat me up for you? I see now. You're just a good actress. I don't know how you got Diaz on your side, but she can't protect you forever." As we spoke, a lawyer arrived with the divorce papers. I signed my name and slid the document over to Ethan. Without a second thought, he scrawled his signature. "Now that we're divorced," I said, "I no longer have any obligation to bring glory to the Hayes family. In less than half an hour, once I make a few calls, your company's stock will begin to fall. It won't stop until you're bankrupt." Ethan and Candy stared at me for a second, then burst into shrill, mocking laughter, as if I'd just told the world's most ridiculous joke. Candy pointed at me, her face a mask of contempt. "Sonny, are you ever going to drop this pathetic act? You tried that bluff once to stall for time. Now that someone's paid your bill, you're trying it again? You think you can take down the Hayes Corporation with help from the number 2 player in town, Victoria Diaz?" She laughed. "Do you know why she's number 2? Because the Hayes family is number 1, keeping her in her place, now that we were divorced." Ethan looked at me with an expression of pure exhaustion. "Sonny, for old time's sake, I'll give you one last chance to save face. You've paid the bill. Now get on your knees, apologize to Candy, and we can put this all behind us." I looked at Ethan with utter contempt. Candy hadn't even begun her crawl of shame, and he wanted me to kneel and apologize to her? Was he insane? I glanced at my watch and allowed a small, cold smile to touch my lips. "Why don't you call your father," I suggested, "and ask him how the Hayes Corporation stock is doing right now?" Seeing from my tone that I wasn't joking, a flicker of panic crossed his face. Just as he reached for his phone, the doors flew open and his father, Robert Hayes, burst in, still in his pajamas. "You fool! How could I have raised such a monumental fool?" "Mister," Hayes screamed at Ethan, before turning to me and bowing deeply. "My dear daughter-in-law," he said, his voice trembling, "you've hidden your true self so well. It turns out you are Sonny Miller, the heir to the Miller dynasty of Beverly Hills." I hadn't heard anyone use my full family name in a long time. I wasn't just Sonny. I was a Miller. I had used a simpler name when I first came to New York to keep a low profile. I never expected to catch Ethan's eye, or that he would use every trick in the book to make a naive young woman like me fall for his charms. Ethan's eyes widened in shock. He stared at his father, then grabbed my arm. "Miller? Your family name is Miller? As in, the Miller family from Beverly Hills? The one whose heir is never seen in public?" I coldly shook his hand off my arm, and Ms. Diaz immediately handed me a silk handkerchief to wipe the spot he'd touched. The color drained from Ethan's face. If his memory served him, he would recall doing the exact same thing less than an hour ago after I'd touched him. When I didn't answer, he turned desperately to his father. "Dad, what is going on?" Candy was also waiting, her heart pounding. She had heard the legends about the Miller heir from Beverly Hills, but no one had ever seen her. If I was really that Miller, then she was finished. And so was the Hayes family. Mr. Hayes looked at his son, his teeth clenched in fury. Yes, he hissed. She is the Miller heir. And you monumental idiot, you threw it all away for that little tramp. With his father's confirmation, Ethan was stunned into silence. Kenny was equally dumbfounded. The entire restaurant exploded into a frenzy of whispers and exclamations. What? Somebody pinch me. Am I dreaming? Or is this actually happening? Someone actually did pinch him, and he yelped in pain. Oh my God, it's real. It's all real. Sonny Miller is the Sonny Miller from Beverly Hills. We were just laughing at her. We're done for. We're all in deep trouble. What are we going to do? Another person wailed. I helped hold her down for those guys. I helped tear her dress. The air was thick with their terrified whispers as they prayed I would somehow forget what they had done. But I remembered what I'd said. Anyone who laughed at me tonight would become a laughingstock themselves. Mr. Hayes was the first to snap out of it. He strode over and kicked Candy, sending her sprawling at my feet again. You homewrecker, he roared. Who do you think you are, crossing Ms. Miller? You let those pigs tear her clothes? You told her to crawl out like a dog? How many lives do you think you have to spare? Candy was dazed from the kick, lying crumpled at my feet like a broken doll. This time, however, there was no one left to back up her arrogance. She looked desperately at Ethan, pleading with her eyes for him to save her. But Ethan didn't even glance at her. His eyes were fixed on me. Mr. Hayes glared down at the pathetic girl on the floor. The only reason the Hayes family has anything today is because of Ms. Miller. I didn't know it myself until I took a trip to Beverly Hills last year. I saw her there, sitting at the head of a table of billionaires, leading a high-stakes negotiation with absolute authority. That's when I realized who my daughter-in-law truly was. She was going to tell you everything tonight. She was planning to take you to Beverly Hills to meet her family, to welcome you into their world, his father lamented. And you idiot, you threw it all away for this useless piece of trash. Ethan's eyes were wide with horror, and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. He looked at me, his mouth hanging open, but no words came out. Reality, however, wouldn't wait. His father glanced at his phone, his face paling, and he turned to me, begging. My dear Sonny, please call them off, he pleaded. The Hayes Corporation stock is in free fall. If this continues, we'll be ruined. I calmly straightened my torn dress, my expression unreadable. I told you, I said, my voice flat. I could raise the Hayes Corporation to the heavens, and I could drag it back down to hell. Without a second's hesitation, Mr. Hayes slapped his son across the face. What are you standing there for, you idiot? Get on your knees and beg Ms. Miller for forgiveness. Do you want to destroy this family? Ethan finally snapped back to reality. Knowing he had to fix the mess he'd made, he turned and kicked Candy squarely in the face. This is all your fault, he screamed at her. You're the one who turned me against my wife. He turned to his guards. Hold her down. Make her do it. Make her crawl out of here. Ethan's men moved in, pinning a hysterical Candy to the floor. She sobbed and begged, her eyes wide with terror. Ethan, please, make them let me go. This wasn't my idea. You were the one who said you wanted to get revenge for me. Shut up, he snarled. You seduced me. You manipulated me into doing this. Don't you dare deny it. Candy let out a bitter, broken laugh. Ha ha, Ethan Hayes, you're a master at shifting blame. But don't think punishing me will save you. Sonny Miller will never forgive you or your family. It's impossible. She was right. Even with her punishment, I had no intention of sparing the Hayes family. But the father and son still didn't get it. Ethan spoke with a diluted arrogance. She will. My wife is just angry right now. She loves me. Why else would she hide her identity and stay with my family for 3 years? It proves how much she loves me. Once she calms down and I apologize, we'll be fine. He then turned to his guards. What are you waiting for? If she won't crawl, then beat her. Beat her until she does. At Ethan's command, the bodyguards began to brutally beat Candy, aiming their kicks and punches at her joints, ensuring she wouldn't be able to stand. Her agonizing screams filled the room, and the other guests cringed, terrified of getting involved with such powerful people. I'll crawl. I'll do it. Just make them stop, she shrieked. They're going to break my legs. To save herself from further injury, Candy finally gave in. Reluctantly, she put the raw steak in her mouth and began to crawl out of the restaurant, barking like a dog. With Candy dealt with, I turned to leave. Ethan saw me going and rushed to grab my arm. Honey, where are you going? If a punished Candy, I'll never, ever humiliate you for another woman again. Please come home with me. I looked at him with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Mr. Hayes, are you delusional? Please have some self-respect. You can't just call any woman you see your wife. We signed divorce papers, remember? I said, pulling my arm from his grasp. The next time we meet, try not to get confused. Just as I freed myself, my childhood friend, Julian Croft, walked in. Sonny, he called out. So this is the guy you refused to marry me for all those years ago. He looked Ethan up and down with disdain. Honestly, your taste is terrible. He's not as handsome as me, not as distinguished, and most importantly, I've been devoted to you for a decade. And him? He cheated after 3 years. Julian's arrival sent another wave of shock through the room. They may not have known who I was, but they certainly recognized Julian Croft, one of the wealthiest men in the world. And Julian was undeniably striking, tall, and impossibly handsome. Next to him, Ethan looked utterly insignificant. Standing side by side, Julian completely eclipsed him. With Julian here, a true sense of panic finally set in for Ethan. We were divorced, and after what he had done, winning me back was going to be an impossible task. Sonny, who is he? Ethan stammered. Before I could answer, Julian shot him a withering look. Who am I? I'm her fiancé, of course, he declared. Now that you two are divorced, she's not marrying anyone else. I just smiled and shook my head. That was Julian, always direct, never one to beat around the bush. Let's go, I said to him. It's been too long since I've been home to see Mom and Dad. Ethan ran after us. Sonny, what about my family? What about me? I paused for a moment, but didn't turn to face him. It will be just as I said. And as for you, we're divorced. You have nothing to do with me anymore. A choked sob escaped Ethan's lips, and tears streamed down his face. If I hadn't done this, he pleaded, if I had stopped them halfway through and told them to let you go, would you have forgiven me? And if I weren't a Miller? I asked quietly, would you have realized you were wrong then? Would you have punished Candy? Ethan was silenced by the question, unable to answer. I didn't wait for one. I took Julian's arm and walked out without looking back. There are no what-ifs in life. A mistake is a mistake, and some roads you can never travel back down.